In this segment, Stephanie Miller and her guests discuss the first few weeks of the Trump second term and how the media is choosing to cover the unprecedented headlines coming from this White House.
My show had value, and that, I'm sorry, that that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I'm sorry, I try not to cry on TV. And I think this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And that it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you. Where I land is that the moment of guilt that I felt, that I went hard on so many issues, whether it was the Black Lives Matter issues of a young baby or a mom or a dad that was killed, or when we opened up people's eyes to the fact that Asian Americans were being targeted and not just Black folks, or went hard for immigrants who've done nothing but come to this country like my parents did and try to make a life and defended them, or whether we've talked about what the president is doing that is subversive to the Constitution, that is injurious to our liberty, defending books that people find inconvenient, that Nicole Hannah-Jones put into our spirit, that we need to understand 1619 as the real founding of this country, whether it's talking about any of these issues, and yes, whether it's talking about Gaza and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed. And where I come down on that is I'm not sorry. I am not sorry that I stood up for those things, because those things are of God. I'm a church girl too, and those are the things that I was taught were of God. And so I'm not sorry. I'm just proud of my show.
It's just the fact that Morning Joe is still there and they're firing Joy Reid is
corporate media.
Yeah. So watch her last show tonight. Send MSNBC a message. Let's make her viewership 11 billion tonight. Andrew Weinstein says, when America's greatest generation, that's my dad. He was a Nuremberg prosecutor, Pete. I don't know if you know that, but when America's greatest generation fought the Nazis during World War II, it's doubtful they could have imagined a future where Germany is a more trusted ally to the rest of Europe than the United States. But that's exactly where we are. And Tristan Snell, just on a further point, because you mentioned the elections, Pete, he said, don't let Trump lie to you. He and his circle did not support the CDU in the German elections. Musk and Vance endorsed the neo-Nazi AfD. Germany is another loss for far-right pro-Putin extremism. So, let's hope we're on our way here. And boy, wouldn't it be great to have that 84% turnout that Germany had, right?
It's a really interesting statistic alone to see that turnout. It's obviously a much smaller country, and they have a different system. I mean, in other countries, in Australia, I don't know if they have this in Germany. I think I would have read it today. Compulsory voting, or however it's pronounced, you have to vote. And I'm not saying that we should necessarily do that in America, but it would make a huge difference in terms of representation. Because if most people voted, then you would have more reasonable politicians. And if we had, something different than the Electoral College, they're parliamentary.
Yeah, I am taking heart from these town halls that we've been talking about, Pete. Someone else threaded, if at the end of all this, America, you still have a country, the very first thing you should do is exile every single Republican from your government forever. Clearly, none of them give two about the common man. I don't know how anyone can willfully make that choice again. Man, when you have Minnesota Nice Senator Tina Smith calling Elon Musk a D,
yeah,
go on, girl. Because
that was something.
Yeah, but I mean, good for her. She's like, I stand with the worker and not your whole boss, who's Elon Musk. I mean, it's go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, I live in Mike Lawler's district, Republican Mike Lawler with the Just for Men beard. And he will not have a town hall. He won't have one here. And when he does, he's going to have hell to pay. He wants to run now for governor of New York against Kathy Hochul if she runs again. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, I think New York is going to be an interesting state to watch. New York is the reason. It's our fault that we lost Congress, one might argue. And so it's our responsibility to try to win it back. So there's a whole bunch of progressive activists in my community and others that are doing everything we can to regain those seats, Stephanie.
Yeah,
so we're trying.
Good for Tina Smith. She said this is the ultimate boss move from Musk, except he isn't even the boss. He's just a She said on X, she said, I bet a lot of people have had an experience like this with a bad boss. Here's an email in your inbox Saturday night saying, prove to me your worthiness by Monday. I'm on the side of the workers, not the billionaire whole bosses. I mean, and I've been to Minnesota a lot. They are really nice. So are Canadians, right? I mean,
the Minnesota, the maddest they get is if you don't merge using the zipper method in traffic. They're outraged if you don't know how to merge. So it starts there. But yeah, I mean, you're going to see people don't get treated that way by their bosses. And there's always a bad boss here and there. But I mean, in the federal government, these people aren't used to being condescended to and disrespected as they climb down George Washington's nose to fix it on Mount Rushmore. These are dangerous jobs, a lot of them. They don't appreciate much being treated that way and disrespected. Yeah. They're not nameless, faceless bureaucrats. We're seeing their names. We're seeing their faces. And they are peed off.
And this is, it's taking heart. This is in Georgia. This is a Georgia Republican. Rich McCormick was one of the first town halls we saw, faced an angry crowd Thursday during a town hall where many constituents lashed out at him over his support for massive federal layoffs and budget cuts by DOJ. One attendee said, why is the supposedly conservative party taking such a radical and extremist and sloppy approach to this? I mean, Musk sent some email and then Kash Patel's like, never mind, don't pay attention to that. I mean, this is just a bunch of incompetent idiots at the end of the day.
For the most part, except RFK Jr. was like, I think everybody should have to respond to that email. But I mean, nobody knows. When you have that kind of confusion, it's unprecedented. So, by the way, that Republican congressman was in Roswell, Georgia. If you haven't seen that video, I mean, just look at his outfit.
That was a good Bobby Kennedy, but not as good as my Katharine Hepburn.